are so thankful that all of you got up early, or even came in last night. People, I think, from all over Western U.S. are here. It's humbling. We're so excited. When Pat called me or emailed me maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago and said, "Would you do another seminar in Cali?" I said, I'm full, like my lecture schedule's full this year. And she's like, "Please?" And I said, "Only if we get Steve to do it with me." You don't have to stand up. Okay. Only if I can get Steve, because we're better together. He has incredibly difficult science that I really end up saying, "So what you're trying to say is da-da-da-da-da." So we work well together. I am not strong at math, and my theory is if I can learn, if I can understand math, anyone can understand it, and that really is the truth. So we have worked well together for 20 years. Part of the reason I'm so excited to be here is we do have a little bit of an anniversary going on. So 20 years ago, Steve Brown, we were already friends. He went from the dark side to the light side. He went from highly processed food to fresh food, I think 15 years prior to me meeting him, 20 years maybe. But he came to me and said, "I'm going to produce the first commercially available raw food diet in the US. Will you be the first veterinarian to sell it?" And I said, "Of course." The biggest hang up for me in my practice was that I graduated from vet school knowing I would be a fresh feeding veterinarian. But giving people recipes, people don't have the time to do it right. So I was so excited because Steve was going to produce a nutritionally complete diet that took the guesswork out of it. We knew it was formulated correctly, and most importantly, it was convenient and easy. This, to me, provided the opportunity to rival kibble for the convenience with superior species-appropriate, nourishing, wholesome nutrition that could actually help my patients live longer in a body that felt better with less disease. I was all in. And Steve was so fired up because that year he called it a booming success. So Steve, when you see this slide, this is not your local human grocery store. This is a local pet store with aisles and aisles of freezers. What does this do to your soul? When I think about the little glass-fronted freezer I had in my tiny waiting room, tell me what you're thinking about that.
It's when I started with my first raw food, nationwide there were maybe 12 freezers that carried raw foods. That's the deli with one of them. And so we went throughout the nation to get 10 to 12 stores and one veterinarian to sell our food. That was 1998, 1999, 12 freezers. Now, wherever I go, whether it's Petco or PetSmart, but especially the independent pet food stores, there are freezers galore, and I'm just overwhelmed with the success of our industry. But I'm also very upset with the industry, and I'm going to talk about that. There are some absolutely great products on the market now, far better than the one I formulated back in 1998. Just really superb products like Raw Bistro and others. And then, because the cost of entry into this industry, the raw diet industry, is so low, there are the liars, cheaters, know-nothings, and anti-science people. And that gets me really upset because, as Dr. Becker is going to tell you, there's a lot of establishment people that want to close us down. And unless we do it right, we could lose the market. So when I started in 1999, there were 10, 12 stores, 10, 12 freezers, and very few people feeding raw diets. Now, of course, there's 20 or 30,000 freezers in pet food stores and hundreds of thousands of people feeding raw diets. The market has spoken. We've won the battle unless we start doing things sloppily, as you'll see. What I mean we won the battle is our foods have proven to be better and safer than kibbles. When I started, our food was more expensive, harder to use. Even though we shaped into little nuggets, it was still harder to use than kibble. In year 2000, the Journal of the American Vet Medical Association came up with articles that literally lied about our food. And the establishment's been fighting us all the way. But despite that, despite all the heavyweights against us, despite the fact that the large candy bar companies and the large cosmetic companies that dominate this market, despite their heavy opposition, we continue to grow and grow. So when we do it right, we have the best products on the market for dogs and the safest. That's what we're going to show you now. How to do it right, how to make sure the products you're getting are the absolute best products, and how to avoid the liars, cheaters, and know-nothings that make me very upset.
Hear, hear. You'll hear Steve and I regularly say the best and worst foods on the market are fresh foods. So we're going to show you the spectrum. We're going to show you some of the very best, and we're going to show you some of the very worst. I think what's most important as store owners, store employees, 2.0 pet parents, retailers, I know that there's some other pet food formulators out there. What's most important as all of us being consumers, because that's what we are. We're all, you may make food at home yourself, but you're still buying raw materials to make those foods. So we are all pet food consumers at one level. We need to have the knowledge necessary to make the very best decisions. And when it comes to commercially available pet food, dry, canned, raw, freeze-dried, dehydrated, doesn't matter. It's such a confusing world. It's incredibly confusing. And I'm going to go over a little bit about why it's so confusing. We are not going to be able to clarify the confusion unless AAFCO and FDA decide to clarify the confusion. That isn't going to happen anytime soon. So what we're left with is becoming wise enough and educated enough through these types of seminars to be able to make good decisions despite the fact that it's not an easy, straight roadmap, and despite the fact that there's no manual for picking fantastic foods. So our goal today is to give you enough information. Honestly, when we were putting this together, we knew we had 3 hours. We want to give at least about a third of that time or more for questions. We're going to do the questions at the end, so write them down. We want to get through the information, but it's really important to us. We know that you have questions, and we want to be here to answer them. But frustratingly, we literally could spend 8 hours talking about the points that we left out. We had to rank them from what's critical for you guys to know. When you leave here, some of you I know were drug her by your neighbor, your best friend, your boss. You're here because you have to be. So whether you're here because you're fired up and wanted to be, or you're here because your job told you you were coming, thank you for coming. But thank you. But also, we want you to leave saying, I'm actually really glad I just spent 3 hours doing that. But we had to pick and choose our information. Now, as most of you know, I talk really quick. I get very excited. I talk even faster. I actually prepared 6 hours of information that I'm cramming into 3.5 hours. If it gets too much, just raise your hand and say you need to slow down. But what I'd like to do is to get through the information so you have adequate time to get your questions answered.